Do you guys remember Boosted Board? Man, I miss Boosted Board. So today I want to talk to you guys about Dehancer. Do I like it? Do I not like it? I don't know yet. Dehancer reached out to me and they asked, do you want to review our product and make a YouTube video? And I said, yes, I do. But I have to be 100% honest in my YouTube videos. And they said, sure, just be honest, upload your video, and we'll take the criticism and implement it into our software. So I said, that's fantastic. I don't want to make videos about products that I don't like and just say I like them. It's not worth, what is it, a $500 program? It's just not worth it to me. So I'm going to say exactly what I feel about Dehancer in this video and let you guys know that. And the other thing is I don't want it to mess with my color grading or my correcting. After I correct and color grade, I want to be able to plug this in. I don't want to see hue shifts. I don't want to see exposure changes, or at least not too much, right? I want it to stay the same. I just want to add a little bit of a vintage feel. So, but I do understand adding a vintage feel will change exposure and sometimes color just a little bit. So I understand that, but let's dive right into it and see what I think. Okay, so one thing that I didn't mention was that this is not a tutorial video on how to use Dehancer, because I don't know how to use Dehancer. This is more of a real world experience to see the learning curve of a new user in Dehancer. I might not know what all the sliders do, but that's okay, because that's the learning curve. So anyways, let's get right into it. Okay, so here we are in Premiere Pro. Yeah, I'm using Premiere Pro, sue me. So I'm gonna throw Dehancer on here. Dehancer's default preset that it comes with. And there we go. Don't love that. Yeah, I would just be like, nope. Almost. I almost was just like, I don't want to deal with this, you know. But what I did, since they sent it to me, I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I said, I'm going to try this out. But Dehancer, if you're listening, you know, when you put it on, you're probably already in the works with this, but maybe there's a drop down here that says Dehancer's presets. You can go clean and do your own stuff, so manual or, you know, a couple different presets. I don't know. I would say don't just start off with a preset, because now, you know, if I hit the undo, it just stays. So what I have to do now is go through each thing and disable. So this is enabled, so I'm disabling, right? I think I got everything there. Now when I disable this, when I hit the FX button and it crosses it out, I shouldn't see anything adjust in my scopes. So let's check that out and see. So I am seeing a little bit in the shadows. If you look right here, I can see the shadows are adjusting a little bit. It doesn't look like anything I'm gonna be too concerned with. I'm not a professional colorist. I love color grading. I think it's super fun and I would consider myself decent at it. So I'm just gonna look through. Okay, so I guess that little bit of shadow detail, whatever's happening in the shadows, I'm just gonna have to deal with whatever it's doing. Okay, so defringe enabled. So what this should probably do is take away anything, you know, like around these lights. If I see, so I see a little bit of blue, fringing, you know, there's a little bit of fringing in here. These lenses are fairly clean. I'm using some Zeiss lenses, so they're pretty clean. But yeah, let me see if I don't see anything happening. I could add this all the way up, defringe radius, and then defringe. I see a little bit happening in my scopes, so I'm guessing a little bit's happening, but this is not something that I'm gonna be concerned with. Maybe if I had an image that was really fringing bad and I wanted to fix it, I would use it. But as of now, it's not doing much for me, and I'm just gonna disable it. So let's go to Film Developer. I'm gonna enable this. If I disable and enable, I don't see anything happening with my scopes here. And I go to Contrast Boost. Okay, so it's just adding contrast, I think. Okay. Again, this is from somebody who's used this once, and I'm just testing everything out again. I don't see anything gamma correction. So if I add contrast and I do gamma correction, that's when it's going to allow me to do gamma correction, but I don't really want to add any contrast. Again, I've already color corrected my image. Color separation. So if I add these again and then I do color separation, I see a little bit happening, but not interested in this. So I'm going to disable that. Film Developer. Film. Again, guys, I just want to use this to just add a little bit of grain or a little bit of interest to my image, a little bit of a vintage look without destroying my color grade. So film, let's enable. Kodak, Vision 3 250D. So this is probably great, some of this stuff. But again, I've already color corrected my image. Although this Kodak looks awesome. I actually really like this look. It's bringing down my highlights in the green and the red, and it's bringing up my shadows. Kind of a really nice vintage look. But what I wanted from my color grade here is you can see the blues are really present and the greens a little bit. And this is adding a lot of warm tones. At least that's what it looks like to me. It's making it much warmer and taking those nice blues away. So I want to keep it the way I have it. So again, the color grade's already there, and I just want to kind of leave it. I just want to enhance images with a little bit of a vintage look. So enable film compression. Man, do I love film compression. Look at these highlights, and then watch when you add film compression. It looks so nice. I didn't add it on everything here. In this image specifically, I do like how the lights are kind of pumping through this smoke here. And the film compression does take that away a little bit. So if I play it, and then I play it with film compression disabled, I do kind of like it disabled a little bit, but enabled, man, film compression is absolutely amazing. Let's look right here on this tube. And if I enable film compression, man, look at that. And look at my scopes. Look at what it's doing. It's just taking, it's not doing anything to my mids or my mid-lows, which sometimes if you adjust whites or highlights, it's going to adjust a lot more than just your highlights. This does a fantastic job. If I was going to use Dehancer for anything, it would be correcting highlights. I'd just throw this on everything. Although you have to watch out for skin, because skin, it will take some of that luster out of your skin. But if you have highlighted windows, you could just enable this and then just put like an opacity layer on your windows. And man, I'm telling you, I've done it, and it's fantastic. Expand. Let's take a look at this. So I enabled expand. Let's look at black point. White point. And again, this is probably for, okay, I see this, okay, I got you. And this is probably for people who are really digging in and exploring Dehancer and learning what all this stuff does. But for me, I want to jump in and I want to just like these things right away and understand them right away. I don't want to have a huge learning curve. Somebody else, you might say, well, I know what expand does and I use it all the time with Dehancer. But for me, I don't want to have to learn it. I just want to come in here and start messing around and know what everything's doing. I've already done my color grading, and I just want to add a little bit of a vintage flair. So print, let's enable print and analog range limiter. Okay, target white. So I don't necessarily love this. Yeah, I don't love this. I understand what it's doing, but I don't love it. I mean, this looks, I can get it to look pretty cool, but now if I get rid of this, it's almost exactly the same as what I just kind of corrected it, right? It was kind of washing the image out a bit, and I added more contrast back in, and yeah. So not interested in print for me. Let's enable color head. Yellow, blue. So this is going to change. This is nice if you can remember that it's here. Remember that. And I'm going to go all green. Let's say my image, for whatever reason, man, it's just so green and I can't figure out how to get rid of this green tint. If I go to color head, now I look for green magenta, I can correct it. Oh man, look how good that is at correcting it. If I can't figure out, I might even start using color head to actually correct my tones in my image and then look at my scopes. So if I look here, obviously, right, it's so green. And if I bring this down, still green. Now I can just dial that in. Oh, that's amazing. And if I even go, okay, so I'm a little bit red. So let's look cyan red. It's kind of like your color temperature slider just broken down. It's awesome. Shadows tone. Oh, I love this. With the LUT that I use, my reds are really high, and I have to bring them down a little bit. I might explore that a little bit. Midtones. This is actually a really nice tool for color correcting. I might stop using Lumetri for actually color correcting and maybe hop in here and do color correcting, because this will be able to color. While using scopes, you can correct your image really, really nicely using Colorhead. Colorhead is something I want to explore more because I can correct, not grade, but correct my image with Colorhead. Okay, awesome. That was a great thing. So I'm going to remember Colorhead, film compression, 2 awesome pieces there. Grain, awesome. I know I'm going to like grain, right? So let's add the grain. Grain is such a simple thing. So let's get rid of Dehancer and see if it adjusted tones. So it looks like it's not necessarily adjusting any of my tones in my image, like my blues or my greens or my reds. It's keeping everything exactly where it was, which is what I want and what you hope for. ISO, as you go higher, you're going to get more grain. So 16 millimeter is going to be a little bit finer of a look, and then we're going to have noisier at 500, right? So I think 65 millimeter is going to be the finest. You can almost barely see it, but then if you go to 500, the grain's just noisier. So I love that. I think that's fantastic. I'm going to use that a lot. Halation, we enable halation, and okay, here we are. Yeah, I get it. I get halation. I think it's cool. Maybe I'll use it here or there. And really, this is kind of like, you know, the definition of dehancing your image. You know, when you start adding halation and grain, it's like, yeah, you're breaking your image more. But it's kind of a cool look. So if I was going super vintage, yeah, I might look at that halation. Smoothness. Let's add smoothness. Let's add the halation. Local diffusion. Okay. Yep, I get it. So it just kind of almost spreads it a little more. Global diffusion, so this is probably going to be more over the whole image, I would think. Amplify, just, you know, almost like an output. Okay. Hue. Okay, hue, that's what I would be interested in. I'd probably go more on the greenish. And blue comp. Okay. Not seeing much happening with the blue comp. We'll just leave it right there. Impact. So that's like the saturation, probably. Okay, I don't feel like I'd use it in a lot of my projects, but I get it. And I feel like if I know it's there, I can add a little flare of it or a little hint of it. I wouldn't go heavy with it. That's just me. Okay, so now let's look at, okay, so we did film grain, we did halation. Now let's look at bloom. So if we enable bloom, so I think 8mm looks kind of cool. Okay, there we go. Amplify, so I'll amplify all the way up. Put some diffusion. I kind of like that diffusion there. Bring this back. Details. Bring the details out. Source limiter. You see that's adding. We bring it back. That's lifting shadows. That's kind of crushing shadow. Not crushing, but you know, bring the shadows down a little bit. Highlights. Yes, highlights should be pretty far up there. Okay, so let's just leave it right on here. Or impact. There we go. This is kind of what I need. Impact. Okay, so maybe we leave it here. I could see myself using bloom here and there for sure. I think it's pretty nice, and I feel like this is a decent look. And if I take bloom off and bloom back on, I mean, I could do with or without. I don't mind it. I might just bring this back a little bit. So maybe we do impact 15%. I could do that. That's a nice look. I would definitely add that in. And I feel like that's a really nice look. I would say it's all coming up in exposure, just like like the tiniest little tiny bit. Yeah, and it's not really messing with any of my colors. It's not adding any hues or taking away any hues or doing anything funny there. It's just adding a little bit of an exposure change, which I'm fine with because it's not enough to really mess with my grading or my correcting there. So that's great. I like bloom a lot. I would definitely use it. Let's check out film damage. Oh, this is cool. I do like this. So, go to Super 8, and this is kind of nice if it's sharp though. Let's see if I can get that sharpness out of there. So this is like a really sharp film damage. Probably other stuff would help as well. So let's go to custom, dust amount. Oh, this is super cool. Like, yeah, I feel like I could definitely use this. Scale, I'd probably bring it down and just make it a little finer. Yeah, size balance. So I don't know how well you guys can see this, but that's pretty cool. I feel like you would just need to mess with it a little bit. Again, if you're inspired, like you could mess with this a little bit more. And I'm feeling a little bit inspired when it comes to this. Hairs amount, bring it up, bring it down. I'd probably go down to, you know, a little less. Scale, maybe we bring it down a little bit. But yeah, I definitely like film damage. I feel like that's a great option there. Again, I would like to just soften up those edges on the film damage just a little bit. I feel like that would look a little bit better. Not as sharp. Some of it looks a little funky. I feel like if you messed around with it a little bit more, you could figure that out. So film damage is, yes, I would use film damage for sure. Vignette. I don't need to mess around with vignette. Film breathing. Not exactly sure what that is. I see it already expanding, like contrast. If I go to custom here, exposure. I'm not sure what this is doing. Maybe it's, yeah, so if I look at my scopes there, it looks like it's kind of coming in and out exposure wise, which I don't think I'd be interested in that. That's not something that immediately stands out to me. And if you can see here, yeah, that's not something that immediately stands out to me as something I would use. False color, fantastic. This is something, as somebody who's interested in color grading, I love. And let me show you guys film compression when it comes to false color. If I enable film compression, okay, so 50 would be kind of like your middle gray there, right? And then as we start to get into this lower gray here, we start to see some more shadowy looking, and then we get into the pink areas, start to be a little more highlighty, yellow, you know, red, orange. That's going to be blown out. So those blues, those dark blues, this is like way, way deep. So, but now what I can see is where those are. So if I wanted to try and correct any of this, I could. If I wanted to try to correct highlights, I could. So for instance, using false color and using film compression here, I could try to correct all of my, I mean, look at what it does to my highlights. Amazing. Amazing what it's doing. Those light grays here are kind of going away. And those pinks, those lighter pinks, are going away, a lot of them as well. And it's amazing. I mean, if I go impact here and I bring it up, I mean, look at what it does. And it's amazing how it's not necessarily, well, there it is a little bit, but it's not necessarily adjusting my mids or my lows. And if I get rid of this now, you can see what it did. Now, the ultimate test, take false color off. Look at that. It's actually correct. Yes, some of the edges of the lights look kind of like they've lost all of their luster and everything, which isn't, to me, not the best look. But if you need it to be correct, or you don't want any highlights, this isn't a fantastic way to do it with film compressor. If I take it off, all the luster comes back. So you just got to go easy with your film compressor here. Obviously, what I had there was a very intense setting. Okay, so false color, yes, I would definitely use false color. Okay, so clip indicating will show me what is actually clipped. And this is great. I didn't know this was here. This here is clipped. That's clipped, and this is clipped in the lows. So now, again, let's go to film compression and see if I can, yeah, look at my setting that I had takes that clipping away. I don't think I don't know if it will take away the lows. I don't think that it would. But those highlights, look at that, takes them right away. So if you were working with a company and they said, we can't have any highlights overexposed, there you go. Now you're good. Now you got your job done. Dehancer is fantastic. I think that there's a lot of things that I would definitely use. I have film compression, which I would love to use. That kind of helps with your highlights. Color head for correcting your greens, your reds, your blues, kind of getting rid of some of those ugly colors that you can't seem to get rid of. Film grain 100% I would use. Halation, maybe here and there. Bloom, here and there would use. Film damage, yeah, I think I'd use that maybe if I needed to add like a real vintage look. Monitor, yes, would definitely use. So there's a handful of things in here. Right off the bat, I say, yes, I want to use those things. So if I take Dehancer off and I put one of my presets on here, Drew Vintage, I don't know how this is going to look. That would be a vintage look. So I like that. I feel like that To me, this is what makes Dehancer nice, because now I can throw this on an already color corrected image. Without it, it works, right? Still works, great. With it, it adds a little bit of a feel to it, a little bit of a vintage vibe, and it's nice. So I think Dehancer is great in that way. Highlight recovery. So if I don't want to add any vintage feel, I just want to add highlight recovery, boom, there we go. Look at that. It takes away all those harsh kind of feeling highlights, and it looks really, really nice. So let's say this image here, I wanted to add my highlight recovery on. And there we go. I mean, it didn't do a lot, right? It did a very, very small amount, but look. I mean, look at here. Look at the water. In my opinion, that does a great job. If you're trying to recover highlights, then look what it does with the scopes. It really only takes down, I would say right to about here is where you see it kind of adjusting, here to here. Anything below it, I don't really see anything happening. It does a great job at separating the highlights between the shadows. Fantastic job at that. Now, let's add my vintage look onto this. A bit more interest in it. I think that looks great. You know, after I color correct, it's not adding any greens or taking away anything or adding cyan or, you know, kind of messing with my colors or my corrections. It's just adding a little bit of a vintage flair. I would say the learning curve is small. Write down the things that you like. So for me, this is a great program for somebody just to jump into and start messing around. If you have an hour just to kind of mess around with it, come up with some settings that you like. The learning curve is short. So yeah, I would say this is a great program and go for it. So yeah, I mean, I do really like this software. I feel like it's great. And it's funny, it's interesting that when I first started trying this software, I probably would have gotten into it a lot earlier, but the trial version bogged my computer down like crazy. And I couldn't even use Dehancer. It took forever to do anything. Like I would click on a different part of the screen and it would take me 30 seconds to actually catch up to it. But as soon as I put the licensing information into it, it all just clicked into place and it flowed nicely, no bogging down, it was perfect. And I was using HDD drives for that test there. So you can see that, yeah, it works fine. So the big question is, would I actually buy this software? I think if the trial version didn't bog my computer down, I might have used it, gotten used to using it. It became part of my workflow, and now I say, yeah, I should buy this, and I might have purchased it. I'm not sure if Dehancer is listening to this, but that was my experience. I feel like if you are interested in really starting to upgrade your grading and making your footage look more interesting and just trying new things, and you have some time to kind of spend digging into this, 100% go for it. Your images will only look better, and I've realized that after kind of going through this. If I get used to this software and start using it daily, my images will only start to look better. So I would say 100% yes. And would I buy it? I think I would. If the trial version worked when I started out, I think I probably would have purchased this software. So anyways, guys, I think this was probably a longer video. Hope you had a good time watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.